Hello everybody, this is Ven, and I welcome you to the M.O.C Spotlight, where we take apart what you build. For today's episode, we will be looking at Akutahn, created by RoaMcToa. Akutahn here is the winner of the Battle for the Golden Mask contest, which concluded very recently, so I decided to take a look at this M.O.C to see what made it stand out above all the other entries. And to review this M.O.C, I will be following a point system that is based on 3 fundamental attributes: the overall appearance of the M.O.C, the build of the M.O.C itself, and the concept and ideas behind the M.O.C's creation. And as always, these will be my opinions. Feel free to disagree, and the points will all be evaluated at the end of the review. Now on to the M.O.C itself. Holy mackerel, this is a large M.O.C. Just look at this. It's probably safe to say that this M.O.C literally stands above all the other entries in the contest. Man, this also looks quite menacing. It's nice to see how well evened out all the colors are. We have a mix of gunmetal, silver, black, red, dark red, all used consistently throughout the M.O.C. There isn't as much red in the lower legs, but that doesn't really bug me. And speaking of the legs, man, these are some heavy-set looking legs. At least we know who didn't skip leg day. But really, Akutahn here has some pretty impressive looking legs. Surprisingly, there isn't all too much going on in the legs either. Usually, large M.O.Cs would have a very busy look to them, but in these legs, it's not too busy. There's a few tubes running around here and there, sure, but overall the legs have a nice clean shape to them. I also think the toes were a really nice touch. Jeez, this thing is big. Taking a look at the midsection, I think this is where I'm going to complain the most. Here, there's a lot of blend of the 2 different reds and a lot of detail added in here too. I actually appreciate all the detail that was added into the torso. If we move up a little bit, it starts to look a little jumbled, and then once we get to the top of the torso, it looks a bit odd. It looks like Akutahn has a triangular chest and practically no shoulders, just these big ol' arms jutting out of his torso. He also appears to have this silver collar, which looks a little unnecessary. There's also a crap load of tubes everywhere, but you can barely tell they're even there unless you look hard enough. That's not a complaint. In fact, I actually kind of like that because the legs have all the tubes going around. I think it adds for a more consistent appearance. Now let's look at these arms. Now I really like how these arms look. Mostly the forearms, because they appear really solid. And the opposable hands look genius. Though I do have to know that when we take a look at the elbows, we see that there's practically nothing. It's like you have this giant bicep connected to Dwayne Johnson's forearm through a piece of ramen. I'll talk more about this in a second. Now I want to move back upward to the head. And man, this head looks very impressive. Just look at the face. It's got this menacing, almost skull-like appearance. I'm really digging how this looks, and I honestly don't really have anything to complain about this. Second to best part about this M.O.C, hands down. And the best part about this M.O.C is the wings. Them wings, man. Just completely awesome. I really like how they can actually fold, and that you're able to pose them in several different ways. I also have nothing really to complain about here. And with that said, I'm just gonna go ahead and start talking about the build. So when it comes to big M.O.Cs, the most important part about them has to be the structure of the legs. Because if you make something this gigantic, especially, and the legs cannot support it, ooh, don't even bother. But the legs here on Akutahn look very well built, very solid, and they're very sturdy, and they look like they do a really good job of holding up this gigantic M.O.C. And what's more convincing is when you look at the waist and how that connects to the legs. Yeah, some hardcore stuff right there. And though I had a couple of nitpicks when it came to the look of the body, it also appears to be fairly well built and sturdy enough to hold up the rest of the M.O.C. And really, the only thing that I could see being problematic about the body from the waist up are, as I mentioned earlier, the elbows, for lack thereof. With the way that these arms are built, it looks as though the forearms could actually just pop off from the noodle connection to the upper arms. And while Roa made use of the friction joint piece, I'm not so sure how reliable that is exactly, because that has the tendency to pop off sometimes. But yeah, aside from the elbows, the arms look pretty well built. Especially the forearms, because once you get to those hands, it just looks fantastic and very well put together. Now, I think that the highlight of this MOC is the wings, because they're the first thing that I really looked at when I saw this MOC. I mean, not only do they look impressive, but when you really take a look at them, you can see that they're very well constructed. They seem to hold up nicely no matter how you pose them, whether you have them expanded completely or folded inwards. And I have to say, that is just an awesome feature, that these wings can actually fold and pose and whatnot. But yeah, overall, I have a lot of praise for this build. And now I want to go ahead and just touch up on the concepts a bit. So RoaMcToa, the creator of this MOC, is very well known for having made several gigantic MOCs. I'm pretty sure she made MOCs that look like they could eat this one for breakfast. And so when it comes to big MOCs, they often look very impressive simply just because of how big they are. But when you really look at them, usually you'll notice that they would just appear to be some sort of jumbled mess of parts just crammed together into some really busy and overly complicated looking results, without all too much flow or consistency in the design of the MOC itself. However, when it comes to Akutahn here, I think it's safe to say that RoaMcToa has successfully avoided this problem for the most part. She made this gargantuan MOC while keeping in mind that it's supposed to look like a character with very distinct features and qualities, such as the toes, the wings, of course, the hands. You know, little things like that to show that the MOC isn't big just to be big, and that it has a very cohesive design overall, and that doesn't look like a jumbled mess. And unfortunately, I don't feel like I can give the torso that kind of praise. Not because it looks like a mess, but because I don't think it really looks all that cohesive. It's the only portion of this MOC that I don't really see any character from it. You have this really impressive looking head with the most character in it than the rest of the MOC, of course, because that's the face. And then you have these impressive wings and these gigantic arms and legs. They all look really solid, and they actually add to the character of this MOC. But, you know, the part where you could have this unique looking chest armor or whatever, it just doesn't really have the same flow. In fact, I feel like it almost does. Just almost. But, you know, aside from that, like I said, RoaMcToa did a really good job of making a very cohesive MOC all around. It's big, it's menacing looking, the wings turned out amazingly. There's plenty of good ideas that were executed very well. So now let's just go ahead and wrap this up. In terms of appearance, Akutahn receives a 4 out of 5. Overall, a very impressive appearance, but I think I made it pretty evident that I'm not a big fan of the torso. The build of this MOC receives a 5 out of 5. Everything is really well rounded and very solid looking, and overall very well constructed. And for concepts, this MOC receives a 4.5 out of 5. This big ol' MOC turned out to look like an actual Bionicle villain, and since that is the theme of the contest it was made for, overall I think that was executed very well. But I would like to have seen a bit more characterization in the torso. And for the final score, Akutahn receives a 13.5 out of 15. It's not a perfect score, but it is still a very great MOC, and a very good entry to the contest. Congratulations RoaMcToa for winning that contest, and thank you all for watching. This is Ven, and this has been my opinion on the winner of the Battle for the Golden Mask contest. See you all next time on the MOC Spotlight.